Welcome back to Soul Sessions. I'm Amanda Rieger Green. Thanks for joining this bonus episode, part 2 of an intimate conversation with my sister, Mimi Rieger, a significant person who has held and continues to hold space for me during my journey. Hopefully, I gift her back the same sacred space. Wherever you are on your own spiritual or healing journey, I hope this conversation helps give you the confidence, the courage, and the voice to explore your gifts, make amends, face your fears, or take that next step. And whenever I say your voice, I mean your inside voice and your outside voice, but the inside voice of that still small voice within that is connected to something greater, bigger, the divine, being able to harness that, cultivate it, and to speak it. I hope you enjoy the rest of our conversation. The gift of intuition can be lonely, and I had a woman tell me that this morning when I finished my Pilates class, just talking about her personal spiritual development. She wasn't talking about mediumship. She's lost her father and her grandmother primarily raised her, and she's going through some stuff right now. But she says, man, Amanda, the spiritual journey is lonely. She said, it can be very lonely. And I said to her, I hear you. It is. And she said, so many of my friends don't want to talk about it, don't know how to hold the space. And she said, I enjoy them. But she says, there's a couple of people that I can go to lunch with, or a book I can bury myself in about signs and oracles and messages. And she says, I can cry myself to sleep, but I'm not crying tears of pain. I'm crying tears of healing and awakening. And then I know who my audience is, and I can share it with, and I know who it may not be safe with, or it may not be okay with, or it may infringe upon their space or their beliefs, and I'm not going to do that, but I still get to be their friend. I just can know my audience. So if you're listening, remembering, it is imperative that this journey be done with people who can hold space for you and support you, because it is lonely. And I know that's your experience as well, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I remember, back 25 years ago, telling my mom that, I wanted to do a teacher training program. And, I was quite young when I did it, and I didn't have the money to do it. And I just figured out a way to do it because I didn't want to ask them for the money for the tuition. But I knew that's exactly where I needed to be and what I was going to do with my life, because it changed my life so significantly. It was that important for me to get the training immediately so I could just start walking the path. But this is many years ago, before, yoga was mainstream, before it was really
Yes. And you lived in Washington, D.C., which just, if you think about the temperature and the intensity of the climate and the pragmatic, very masculine. I mean, D.C. is a masculine, intense, very locked down energy. So we're talking the 90s, where there might have been a handful of yoga teachers or studios that were holding space, and you taking that bold step, and it also being, I'm not going to say misunderstood, but not received as easily.
Yeah.
So for you,
or legitimately, or as
legitimately, that's a good word. Yeah.
As a legitimate career. That's legitimate's not really the word, but you know what I'm saying? I can't think of the exact word that I would like to use, but wow, how things have changed though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so just encouraging anyone out there to stick close to your people, and you don't need 10 people. One person, 2 people who hold the space for you to discover yourself and share your highs, lows, and everything in between can be exponentially illuminating and evolutionary. And that's what you have been for me in this journey, and we get to continue to be together. Your mom comes through. So I walked through. How many years has it been
4
now?
years.
What year did your mom pass
4
away?
years.
4 years. That's what I thought. 4 years. Mimi and her mother were best friends and each other's people, each other's people. I'm going to go back to that terminology. But walking through her, and she was a fighter and also a strong woman and a dignified woman. Gosh, your mom was dignified and strong and determined to live. To live through and to live fully, even in a lot of disease and pain, anything that she was faced with, she faced it in a way like when I think of your mom and when I feel her, because I do right now, it's like shoulders back, chin up, and she looks beautiful. And she's like, and look pretty,
Yeah.
of course.
Yeah.
She's like, and pull it together and look good,
Yeah.
which resonates with both of us. But when we were in that last year of your mother's life and me coming back into your life and us reforming and strengthening our bond, all of that is divine, because as a result of that, our mothers got to do some, I would say, pretty tremendous healing
Hmm.
through that phase. And I think it was ushered through not only with the two of us, but our other siblings, in holding the space that we didn't even know we were holding. But the love that we were regenerating together really created an opportunity for our mothers to see each other and to create a different kind of healing and respect and love. And I think both of them, and I know this because we've talked about it, but they wanted us to be with each other, not apart.
Yes.
And I mean all of our siblings, not just Mimi and I, but all of our siblings. But getting to walk through your mother's illness and watching you in all your pain and your strength, and I don't know, the trauma of it and the beauty of it. She has come through numerous times along the way to deliver messages through me and through others, of course. But I'm trying to remember, she showed up recently because we had a moment recently where we were just on the phone and she showed up with another tangible experience, and my eye is twitching right now. So I don't know what she's telling me with that, but all of a sudden it started twitching. But what are some of the memories you have around that and experiences with walking through the death of your mother and then leaning into the death of my mom?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I will say this because I think it's important to just to establish this, that, my mom over the years had 3 different types of cancer and that sort of thing. And so I remember we were in Costa Rica. We were at one of my retreats. You were there with me, and we were sitting. I was having a reading. We're sitting by the water, and you said,
By the way, we're going to come back to Costa Rica because aliens will enter the picture. I'm just going to throw that bomb out there because we're going to come back to Costa Rica after we're talking about the dense, intense family stuff, and we're going to go back to UFO and craft because Mimi held the space for me to experience extraterrestrials. Okay, go. Let's go back to your mom is like, Amanda, get back to the
yeah, get back to
the
this
story.
important things, right?
Get back to these important
Yeah.
things, Amanda.
So we were having a reading, and I mean, my greatest fear all my entire life is that my mom, was going to die, and I was just, how was I going to survive without her? Like, I lived with that angst from the first time that she had cancer when I was 16, all the way to when she passed away, at 85. So I remember you saying, you looked at me and you said, everything's going to be okay, but your mom, you're going to go to Houston and spend a lot of time in Houston with your mom this spring, and everything's going to be okay with work. You're going to be able to, like, your classes will be fine. Everything's going to be fine there, but you are going to be spending quite a bit of time in Houston with your mom. And I remember saying, is she going to, and you said, well, I don't know. I don't see that right now, but I think that you just need to make arrangements to be able to have a very fluid schedule to spend time with your mom, this spring. And so that's exactly what happened. And from there, I remember it was at our niece's wedding party. And my mom, that was her last big hoorah. That was one of her goals, to go to that engagement party. And she went, and she, just was gracious and lovely, and just such a fighter, and just did such a great job just being there, because it was hard as hell. It was very hard for her to get there. She was asleep on the back of my aunt's car on the way over, like from Houston to Baton Rouge. It was not a good thing, but that's what she wanted to do. So we did it. And I remember you taking me aside in the little store where we were, and you said, I just want you to know it's not going to be very long. Like, you had a really good way of, like, kind of giving me just the 411, so to speak, the spiritual 411, that things were close. and you felt like you knew that you needed to let me know that, even though inherently I knew it. I mean, we all knew it, but it was
Yeah.
just how imminent was it? And, and I think that, I mean, that is the greatest gift that I think anyone could be given if their parent is not well or a loved one is not well, to just have someone tenderly say, you've got a little bit more time, but spend it really wisely. Like, no, know this, like, trust this, that this is, and I think I just can't imagine not having that conversation with you.
Thank you for sharing that, because one of the things that it brings up, so many of us are driven and we're busy and life happens and is always constant. And we come from some stock of drive. Like we are very hardwired to show up, to work, to be, to get done. And a lot of times we forget to reprioritize family or what's important and trust that we will be safe. The money will be there. We will be taken care of. Work will be there if we need to take off. And I know that resonates with a lot of people. And it was as much of a message to you as it was to me about, what do I prioritize? When something difficult is happening, am I able to stop work or put things on hold or reschedule things and make the time and trust that nobody's going to be mad or upset, or if they are, that's their stuff, not mine, and as long as I'm showing up and being accountable and communicating, but to make that space. And I remember on my heart telling you that, because it was coming through so boldly, but it was like, I have to tell her this because she wants to be able to be there and spend that time. And it's not about having regrets, but it was like just being a divine messenger. And it's not me, it's spirit coming through. And it's heeding that call of delivering those kinds of messages that are delicate. When you're talking about death and illness, when I'm on the phone with clients regarding divorce, or if a child is sick, or a pet, I mean, there are things that come through and I think, God, give me the strength. How do I say this? How do I deliver it? But they always, when I say they, I mean the consciousness of the person I'm talking to, my guides, the collective consciousness, God, all of that comes through and they speak through me. They give me the words or the time or the environment to be able to usher it in the best way possible. And then what the person does with it, that's their business. That's their opportunity, not mine. And being able to say those things to you. And then I watched you take time off to show up. And I know that it was because I've just walked through it. Mm-hmm. The same I did. And then here's what to me is mind blowing, because the way I watched you take time off, make sacrifices that were of utmost importance, prioritizing your mom and your time and going to Houston and being there for doctor's appointments and all of the things that ensue and terminal illness. I was able in turn to do that here, a year and a half ago when Dennis and I were in Belize, and my mom's illness which she had a terminal illness, but she had been doing so well. But when things shifted, and when they shifted fast, and I didn't handle it all the best in that time. And I think it brings out some of the most challenging parts of us, death does, and caring for a terminally ill person, whether it's a parent, a spouse, a child, a grandparent, whomever it is, it can bring out some of the most terrifying aspects of ourselves and some of the most beautiful aspects. But you paved the way for me to be able to drop everything, move back, and hold space for my mom in that last year of her life. And so it's interesting, back to the parallel experiences, how watching you walk through that gave me the cliff notes, for lack of better words, to summon the same courage.
Vernon, the heating and cooling specialist. The name says it all. When you focus solely on indoor comfort for 43 years, well, you get really good at it. Get your heating or cooling system tuned by a Vernon specialist today for only $69. Vernon's 60 to 90 minutes of meticulous system inspection guarantees energy savings, or the tune-up is free. Now that's a value. Go to VernonHeating.com.
It's interesting, back to the parallel experiences, how watching you walk through that gave me the cliff notes, for lack of better words, to summon the same courage with my own fears about work or money or priorities, and all of that stuff just falls into place.
I will say this, like, just how I would say, we were talking about, the messages that you can convey to others, but it's really a gift that keeps on giving, because, watching you go through it, and then, going through it myself with my mom, and I'll just be sitting, outside of a class with students, and, people are talking about, challenges with their family, challenges with their mom, someone's ill, this and this. And I mean, whether it's the right thing to do or not, I just feel very called to say, do whatever you can to spend this time with your person, whomever it is. You know what I mean? And I might be overstepping, but I feel like, kind of like you, I most of the time know that it's the right thing to do, because it feels right, and it's usually very well received, because I'm speaking from my heart. It's not like I'm saying, go spend time with these people, you horrible person. It's more like, this is what you want to do because you don't want to miss these tender, sweet moments. And I remember saying that to you. Just go and do nothing. Get in the bed and watch old movies and laugh.
Yeah. And we did so much of that, like I was able to do that, and Sally, our oldest sister, she works and does things and multitask like I do. She's like, Amanda, just get in the bed and don't bring your computer with you. When I was watching it, because I would watch TV with Mom, and because I'd want to be in there with her, and I'd be like, Mom, I've got to answer some emails, but I'm right here. And Sally would be like, Amanda, get in the bed and don't bring the computer. Yeah. Get in the bed and bring the computer sometimes because you want to be with her and she wants you to be there too. But get in the bed and just be in the bed and watch TV.
Present,
and
be all the way
present. Be all the way present, because those memories, and I sit in her bedroom all the time, and I mean, there's a couple of shows that have come out where she was so funny. One of them is Only Murders in the Building, the Hulu show with Steve Martin, Martin Short, Selena Gomez. And she said, Amanda, I mean, I cannot believe the audacity of them to finish up this season and not release a new one. Don't they know I'm dying? And she said that. She said, I mean, like when it was over, season 2, she says, don't they know that I'm not going to be here for season 3? Couldn't they have taped it earlier? And it's funny because it's out now, and I go sit in her room, and I sit all the way down. And I sit there with my little snack or whatever I'm doing, and I just sit in there, and sometimes I cry and I laugh and all the things, but it's those tender moments, like you said, that's part of the grief process and the healing process and the divine connection. And it is making me think about leading up to my mother's death, which I mentioned to you all earlier. I absolutely could not have walked through what I walked through in caring for my mom the last year of her life without my husband and my siblings, because they showed up at exactly the right moment when I asked or didn't ask, and they showed up unconditionally, and I knew to ask them for help and ask them to intervene. And I was raw, and I was exhausted, and I was messy, and I was afraid, but everyone showed up in ways to support that journey so it could be divine, painfully divine in a way. So thank you for that, and thank you for sharing those tender moments. And, I know that, and I want to share this because it is kind of funny. I remember, I don't know, like in the last 6 months of my mom's life, she kept having dreams about your mother. Mm-hmm. Like very poignant dreams about your mom. And they would be these dreams where they would be sharing a meal together, and they'd be like splitting a hamburger. Yeah. Like they would be cutting a hamburger and splitting it. And and 2 of the dreams that my mom had, both times they were having meals, And both times their meals were interrupted by other people. One time it was like they were in your mom's home and some of your mom's friends were there and mom was there and she was cooking a hamburger, which is so hysterical because and my mom was loving that your mother was cooking a hamburger, like, all of these things, but that she cut it and they were splitting it. And one of the women was like, I can't believe that you're just letting her eat off of your plate. And your mom jumped to and said, mind your own business. We do this all the time. We always share a hamburger. And then mom had another dream and they were so vivid. And she said that it was like they were living in like an assisted living or an independent living space. And they were in the dining hall, in the dining room together. And our mothers were sitting together and there was some gentleman that was hitting on my mom and wouldn't leave her alone. And mom kept saying, no, no, thank you. No, you can leave. I'm having my lunch right now. And the man wouldn't leave. And finally, your mom said, did you hear her? She said, leave.
Yeah.
Like, so it's in those do you remember me telling you those stories about, and then mom was saying, yeah, like I keep dreaming about your mother. And it was like your mother was there taking care of or protecting my mom in some sort of way. And that is not the dynamic that those two women had, that both were madly in love with the same man. Right? Our father, at different stories and different times, but it was healing because I think, and to be able to share those stories and not have to explain them or feel weird sharing them, but it was really healing. And also it was like, yeah, their souls have known each other for a long time, or I don't think they would have agreed to play these roles that were so painful and intimate and tragic and traumatic, but it was like their souls were fusing back together and coming back together, and they were bonded in some sort of way. And I believe that fully on the other side, that there's a very deep soul connection between the two of them. And I believe that with people because I see it oftentimes, protagonist or antagonist in our lives, people where we have the most dysfunction, tragedy, trauma, pain, are often souls. And I don't mean this all the time. We have some psychopaths and sociopaths out there and people who are, extremely abusive. So I'm not giving spiritual bypassing, a spiritual pass to anybody. But I do believe that some of the people where we can experience the deepest sources of pain are souls that are so deeply bonded that we trust them to play out their experiences for their lessons and give us the space to learn our lessons. And to me, there was a lot of full circle energy spiritually, like walking between the worlds, that was happening there. Does that resonate with you?
No, it absolutely does. And I will say that I think that, the way that I see it is that they're on their own little unique club. Those two, they had their very similar and different experiences with the same man. But I do think that the fact that they were able to see each other together, and they were at a get together, a party, and they were able to like see each other and spend time with each other energetically and in person. And I think the way that I read what you're mentioning is my mom was just trying to establish, like, hey, I'm here. I've got your back. Like, I've got you.
Yeah.
I'm on the other side, but I'm here, and, I see you, and I'll be here when the time comes. I got you.
Yeah. This is mind-blowing, miraculous stuff. And I'm sharing these very intimate family, personal experiences that have been the deep source of a lot of pain for my sister and I and our other siblings and our parents. Lots of dysfunction, confusion, misunderstanding, things handled very poorly on the parts of our parents in their own ways, because they're human beings, right? Our parents are humans just like we are. But getting to see healing at end of life, it's something that I don't even know how to explain the gift that it gives, but I know that it resonates.
Absolutely.
One of the things that
I don't even know.
I know there are so many stories, and I know we've shared a handful, a lot of information with everyone today, but I do want to talk about extraterrestrials because just like spirits coming through, that first time I was in DC, and they always come through. I mean, we always have stories anytime we're together or apart. We have stories that really fuse and intertwine and lift us up and amaze us. But years ago, Mimi hosts multiple retreats every year internationally, but one that is a long-standing retreat is in Costa Rica, and it's in the most beautiful place, and it is simply luxurious and tropical, and it's a pretty magical place in Costa Rica on the Osa Peninsula. It's called Blue Osa. But we were there, and this was my first time coming to Blue Osa for the retreat. And we had this amazing, because Mimi hosts a retreat, and we had this amazing room, this penthouse room that had a pitched ceiling, like this big pitched ceiling. And of course, I'm there and we're talking about gifts and spiritual gifts. And at this time I had already left my corporate job, I believe, and was doing what I do with soul pathology and readings and making it my avocation, my full-time job. But I remember, and I think I had mentioned to you, I don't know how it all came about, but I remember looking up in the night sky, and I had already been having visitors. And I think I had mentioned to you, I don't know how it all came about, but I remember looking up in the night sky, and I had already been having visitors visit me in Texas, on our property in Texas. And I was getting contact from ships, and I would see them in our backyard. We had a couple of acres just outside of Austin, and I could see the night sky clearly. I would look up and I would see craft in the sky, and they wouldn't be stars, and they would be moving, and they would be signaling laser beams. So all of this was going on. I go on this trip to Costa Rica, and of course we're in Costa Rica, and I look up at the night sky after dinner one night, and there are a couple of craft. And I didn't say anything to anyone publicly. I just see the craft, whatever. So we get up to our room, and I think you're reading, of course. You have the light on, and you're, totally engrossed in a book. And I am sitting there in bed just looking for the extraterrestrials and the spacecraft that I had already seen at dinner out our window. And you're asking me what I'm doing. And then next thing you know, I'm perched next to the window. You have to tell this story, because then it's pretty incredible.
Well, it's like like a kid waiting for Santa Claus. It's honestly like that. It's like the excitement that just the jubilation of the expectation that something that you've been wishing and hoping for all your life is about to happen. You know what I mean? So I remember I'm reading, and I remember you just kind of very elegantly slip off the bed and get on your hands and knees and start looking underneath one of the windows. Just to be clear, when we say penthouse, it's literally like a tree house on the top floor, where the top floor is like a big tree house. So it's it's not like some cement, something. It's like we're in the jungle, full on, with open air and availability for all sorts of creatures to come into the room. So that's for another day. But anyway, so talking about these creatures. So anyway, so she is literally on her hands and knees with her little hands on the windowsill, looking up. I see them. They're there. I'm like, what's happening right now? And you said, I see the craft. They're signaling me. And I said, well, what are they saying? You're like, well, they're signaling me. And I said, well, just let me know what I should tell everybody. When they take you, I'll give the message back to everybody. What should we say? I wasn't freaked out. I was like, well, if you're going to go, I need to know how to let people know this has happened, because I need to have the right delivery so people don't think I'm insane. That, it was the cutest thing. Yeah.
Well, and you also said too, I'll be sure and tell everybody you'll be back. You're not going to be estranged from us again. You've gone up into a craft with your people, but you'll be back and you'll tell us what's going on, that you're not piecing out of our lives again, that I have witnessed this. So I get back in bed, and here's the crazy part about it. I get back in bed, and again, what you hear is Mimi just unapologetically, without hesitation, holding space. Instead of saying, Amanda, get back in bed, or you're ridiculous. There was never any of that. It was like, okay, well, if you're talking to your people, what are they saying? And okay, and you weren't placating me either. I mean, you were curious and believed, but also okay, well, this is happening. So I get back in bed. And I turned my little reading light out, and you're still reading, and then I think you turned yours out at some point. And do you remember the room illuminating from the inside out?
Yeah.
When you talk about that, because it was pretty crazy.
Yeah, just the lights.
It was pitch black. Remember, we are somewhere where there's limited electricity and energy. There are no lights in the sky. So everything, when it's dark, when you turn the lights out, it is pitch black there. You can't see your hand in front of your face.
So there's like this translucent flooding of light that starts coming in and like kind of dancing around, and
the room illuminated, and you basically said, "Did you see that?" And I said, "Yeah, I saw it." Like I did, because it was like the room lit up from the inside out versus the outside in.
Yeah.
And nothing, there was not electricity. It was luminous. Yeah. It was translucent, and it was kind of like lightning, but luminescent. And I don't know how to explain it, but they came in and they were signaling. I don't think they were physically there. It just was energy. And yeah. I don't know. It was energy and them signaling. So I remember the next morning we go down and we're talking to a couple of friends who are the most unlikely of candidates to embrace this story, but we're both kind of blown away by what has gone on and happened. And then next thing we know, one of, your good friends, my dear friends now, basically says, "Oh yeah, we were in that room last year and this was happening, and I knew there was weird stuff going on. I knew." And then next thing you know, the whole dialogue starts, and by that evening at dinner, we had a telescope out, and everyone is looking for craft, and we saw them in the sky. Do you remember? We literally have telescopes. We have basically implored all the people and everybody, and so everyone who is curious about this is out there in the night sky looking at the craft moving and signaling, and they were there. And people witnessed all of this.
Yeah. So yeah, it was a very unique retreat for sure.
Yes. It was. And it was basically an introduction. This is my sister.
Yeah.
Welcome. She brought her friends with us, and nothing happened from that. It wasn't like anybody had some download of information, but what it was this kind of coming together and this curiosity and seeing beings from other dimensions coming into our reality in craft. And we had someone there, by the way, who, another dear friend of ours, who was saying, "Okay, I'm not sure about this, but okay, you're right. This isn't showing up on the," like we had an application on the phone where you could look at the stars and it would name the stars. And he's like, "Well, I will validate that this isn't showing up." And so we had, all of the things. I want to go back to one other story, just because these are so fun to share, and I hope you all are enjoying these stories and getting not only laughter and joy from this, but curiosity and what comes through safe space and camaraderie in whatever you're exploring, whatever you believe. Because it really is about getting curious and expanding consciousness. And I, like I said, I don't necessarily, I do know different today about those beings and connections that I've had and what they're signaling. And I've had different interactions with them that is much more evolved today. Because living in Belize, they would show up quite a bit, or craft would, and the interactions were a little bit more personal and dynamic. But I will say this. So you and our sister Ann had come to visit my husband and I, Dennis and I. You all were in Texas, and the home that we lived in Texas, we had a ghost. And we literally had a ghost. There was a gentleman who had died on the property where we lived prior to us moving there, and his name was Harry. That was actually his name. And right when we moved into the property, he made contact with me, and I was able to put the puzzle pieces together, and he had a heart attack in the yard. Our neighbors, I told my husband about this. Our neighbors validated the whole story. They were digging some new electrical lines, and he was 38 and had a heart attack. He left a wife and 3 children. It was very tragic, sudden, and unfortunate. But anyway, his name was Harry, and he would show up, and it was almost as if his spirit was really stuck. It wasn't. It was stuck. I know. It was very, he would show up too as an apparition. And I don't always see spirits as apparitions, but he would show up. I would see him out of the corner of my eye, and he would never cause harm. He was quite protective over the property and actually over me. But anyway, you and Anne come to visit, and Dennis and I are relaying stories about Harry. We are telling you about how Harry shows up, about him opening cabinets and leaving them open, about him running off. We had 2 housekeepers that he ran off. So they might have, I mean, it was lots of things were going on with Harry. So Dennis and I are telling you these stories. And I think it was Anne. We're sitting there just all kind of curled up talking. And do you remember this?
Well, I know, I can't remember what he says, but it came through on your phone or Anne's phone.
Yeah. Yeah, on my phone. So we're sitting there, and Anne says, well, Amanda, how does he show up? And immediately after she said that, and my phone was sitting like on the coffee table away from all of us. I don't have Siri on my phone. I have all of that turned off. So I don't even have Siri on my phone turned on capabilities. And this is years ago, by the way. This is probably 2016.
I was going to say like 7 years ago. Yeah.
Yeah, like it's been a while, 2017. And literally she says, how does he show up? How does he communicate is what she asked. How does he communicate? And literally the phone in a man's voice very clearly says, I think, therefore I am.
Yeah.
I mean, so there you go. The answer, I mean, this is the most paranormal thing I've ever had happen. And it's Dennis, my husband, my sister Anne, our sister Anne, Mimi, and I, and we're all sitting there, and the phone is, none of us can reach the phone. None of us have touched the phone. My Siri is not even on. How does he communicate? I think, therefore I am, which is energy. Like that is, the definition of energy. And we all sat there for about a minute in silence, just staring, and you are the one that broke the silence and said, did anybody else hear that? And we are all just floored at the experience because it is one of the wildest paranormal experiences I've ever had. But anyway, I wanted to share that. And I want to thank you for being here and holding space and for allowing us, allowing this time to be able to talk about sensitive and personal things, but also experiences that are divine, that are spiritual, that are healing. I want to talk a little bit about you. So I mentioned to everyone, my sister is a yoga instructor in DC. She hosts retreats, amongst other things. She is an incredible entrepreneur, but you just did your death doula certification training. Do you want to talk about that a little bit? Because it's becoming more prominent. And if you're out there and you haven't heard about this, just like there's a birth doula, you can be a doula helping people bring babies into the world, ushering them in, holding space for the family. It's becoming more commonplace and accepted. There is death doula training, and you, as a result of what you talk about it, tell me how that flourished in your heart and then your training a little bit.
Sure. So, from all of that wonderful, invaluable time that I spent with my mom in her last, year of life, like I mentioned, it was just such a gift and something that I didn't ever really think that would be the most beautiful thing that I've ever witnessed. I thought it would be the most terrifying thing that I'd ever witnessed and the saddest thing. Yeah. Actually, it was like one of the most fulfilling things that's ever happened to me, and very validating because not only am I still here and doing okay, I'm doing well. And I feel like, because of your gifts, I'm able to stay in touch with her and know that she's, right by my side. But also it made me realize that, dying is beautiful, and it's so important, that the process of dying. And I just feel like it has such a taboo. I don't know. It's just not well received in our culture. And this, my journey to the death duel, I'd been wanting to do it for 2 or 3 years. And I finally have found the time to actually do it, where I could commit to it and really make it part of my next step, my next chapter in my life. But it was one of the things where, I did all the coursework and I read the books and did all the things. But when I went there, it was like I already knew everything. And that's when, when you're in the right place, mm-hmm. when it is all so natural, where, it's not challenging. It's not It's not difficult to do all the homework that, hours and hours and hours of homework. I couldn't wait. I mean, I was driving around town with my windows down, listening to, books on dying. Everybody else is like listening to music and blah, blah, podcasts. And I'm like rolling around DC, like listening to like really kind of intense, morbid stuff and having the greatest day of my life.
That's like me. I listen to those things all the time, and I am just making spiritual connections left and right, and it feeds my soul, and it can be something extremely intense or sensitive, and I am finding so much clarity and meaning and connecting dots. One of the things you just said that I want to go back to as well is that the thing that you thought would be the most terrifying was one of the most beautiful things in your life, and that is your mother dying. And yes, it has the pain and the loss attached to it, but the thing that you would be the most terrified of ended up being something that not only was beautiful, but opened up deeper gifts within your soul that you have been connecting the dots through and in.
Yeah. And I think that, what I mentioned about like saying something to some of the students about, spend this time with your, with your loved one, that sort of thing. But I don't think that if I wouldn't have reconnected with you, and this will just kind of bring it all the way home.
Yeah.
If I had not reconnected with you and had the opportunity for you to, be in the process and actually pretty much just forecast that was what was going to happen with my mom and the timing and that sort of thing. It gave me the grace to be able to prepare for it, but it also gave me a lot of tools that I think that I needed in order to be able to handle it, but to be able to find the beauty in it and be able to like share that with others, like to want to be able to speak to people about, don't you want your loved one to have the best death possible? Don't you want to have them feel celebrated and seen and taken care of, but also, have them have a voice in the way that they live in the very, last days of their lives or months of their lives? Help them have a plan, help them have a way to have dignity and instead of go out with this sense of sadness, with more of a sense of celebration. If I were listening to myself 25 years ago, like, who is this? What is this person saying? But like, it's a lot of work and it's been a journey, and it was so effing hard. I mean, it really was so hard, but it was also so unbelievably beautiful at the same time. And it brought my siblings and you closer together because, I mean, it was such a significant loss in our family.
So many people out there listening, I hope that this gives you the space to be able to love the people you love and love them well and show up when you know that the time is imminent or someone needs you, whether it's that dire or at the end or not. But even in bringing this full circle, when our father died, he died very traumatically and tragically, and I witnessed that. It was not beautiful. It was none of those things, and I got to experience the painfully beautiful, divine time of death with my mother.
Yeah.
So it was like I've seen both sides of that, and I've had quite a few people die that are close to me in my life. And mostly my core family a lot. And so getting to walk through that and hear that from you and then repeat it myself and be on the other side of it, it's still so many experiences keep unfolding, keep showing up to illuminate my path, to illuminate your path. And it's beautiful to share that space together and this intimacy, but also to share it with other people in whatever you're walking through, and however this relates to you or what you have on your heart or what's pressing in your family or in your environment. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for being my sister, my person, who I want to be when I grow up still. Delighted. Yeah. Absolutely. Where can people find you?
I have a website, Mimi Rieger Yoga. Instagram, same thing, Mimi Rieger Yoga. I have a sweet little small studio in DC if you want to practice in person. Retreats, 2 or 3 upcoming in the next year. more to come after that. I feel like just trying to do something new, looking into new things. So I think I'm going to, press pretty hard into the end of life part of my chapter, moving forward.
Absolutely. And I can't wait to see what unfolds. I'm curious and I'm excited, and I'm right here to support you in that. And I encourage anybody out there, if you are in the DC area or you are wanting to go on a beautifully curated, soulful experience with a little bit of body work and breath work through yoga and movement, a lot of laughs, good food, good times, new community built, check out my sister's book of offerings because they are rich and enriching and will change your life. MimiRiegerYoga.com. I love you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you for coming and being vulnerable and willing to share parts of our story. I hope that they've helped everyone else, and go have an amazing day. Everyone out there, thank you for joining me. And if you have comments or feedback, please be sure to reach out. Reach out on Instagram, soulpathology.com, or you can email me, podcast@soulsessions.me. Be sure to like, follow, and share with anybody you think this might uplift, touch, or expand. Take care.